All right, everyone. This is Mr. Martinez, and I'm going to be doing a lesson um, about the Jews, Christians, and Rome, a history. The EQ is right here. What was the history of the Jews and Christians and their influence in the Roman Empire? We're going to begin shortly. All right, so one thing that I do want to establish from the very beginning is that this is not a lesson promoting any specific religions or not promoting. This is simply a historical analysis of what happened with the Jews and Christians in Rome, how they affected each other, and what was the outcome. And the purpose of this lesson is simply to inform from history what happened with the Jews, Christians, and Rome. Now, excuse me, the reason that I'm doing this lesson as well is because it's part of a 6th grade curriculum in the state of California. So oftentimes teachers do not get a chance to do these lessons. So I'm providing this review for my students to help them in preparation for the other items we're going to be studying throughout the school year. So let us begin. So first thing, Rome, Jews and Christians, Roman Standard, Jewish menorah, and the Christian cross. And it is important to remember that the cross was an implement of Roman death. It's a way they killed people. But it has since been used by Christians over 2,000 years to represent their beliefs. So, just want to point that out. We have the Jewish menorah, very important for Jewish people in regards to their belief. And of course, the Roman standards, representative of their beliefs as well. So, let us continue. So our focus, we're going to look at the Jews, their historical identity, where they came from, first century Jews, what occurred in their lives. We're going to look at the Christians, Jesus of Nazareth. Who was Jesus? Was he even real? Paul and the spread of Christianity. We're going to look at the fury of Rome, how Rome dealt with the Jews, and how they dealt with the Christians. And then we're going to conclude. So, let's dive in. First of all, the Roman world at this time, as you can see from this map, went all the way up to England, Hadrian's Wall up here, Spain, Northern Africa, Judea, parts of Asia Minor, all the way into Europe. And these are the historical names of these places at the time of Rome, Italia, and so on. So this is the area of the Roman Empire that we're going to be learning about. So, first, the Jews, their historical identity, where they came from, where they started. And most historians attribute their beginning to 1280 BC, the Exodus from Egypt. Moses receives 10 commandments and writes the first 5 books of the Jewish Bible, known as the Torah or the Law. And for Jewish people, this is the most important. They believe that Moses did write it. Now, there are historians who have different opinions, but for Jewish people, they accept this as truth. And you can see the picture of Moses with the 10 commandments. Reminds me of a famous movie where one of the most famous lines, "Pharaoh, let my people go," was uttered. So, very important. Next we come to the name of God for Jews and Christians as well, but started with the Jews. And you can see YHWH. That's the name of God. Jewish people have not they can't remember how to say this in Hebrew because it's been forgotten, because there's no vowels. So usually translators translate it, they put a and an E, and you get Yahweh. In the Latin, Jehovah. So when you see a capital Lord, that means this name right here for God. If you see a capital L, a lowercase ord, that's usually Adonai or Elohim. It depends on what book you're reading. But the Jews have a statement that represents their faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And for them, that is the essence of their belief. Okay? They had a golden age under King David. Solomon built their first temple, which, according to their beliefs, that's where God dwelt amongst his people. But the kingdom was divided north and south. The north was conquered by Assyria, 722 BC. The south conquered by Babylon, 586 BC. And I remember in college I had a professor who gave us what he called the happy sheet. And this date was very important. 586 BC, fall of the southern kingdom of Judah. Okay, their historical identity. So, Jews were in exile for over 70 years. But eventually the Persians conquered the Babylonian Empire. And in 539 BC, the Jews were allowed to return, and they built their second temple. But then, you might have heard of a famous conqueror named Alexander the Great. He comes along and brings Greek culture to the region, but he dies at a very young age, and his empire is split amongst his generals. Eventually, the Ptolemies and Seleucids are fighting for power back and forth, and in the middle you have the Jewish people struggling for their very existence, being conquered by the Ptolemies and Seleucids. Specifically, Antiochus IV Epiphanes does some horrendous things to the Jewish people. But eventually, they revolt in 167 BC. Judas Maccabeus and his family are able to retake their land, and in 164 BC institute Hanukkah. And this is a tradition that arose from the story that they did not have enough oil for the lamps that were supposed to be burning in the temple. And so they put as much oil as they had, which was only about a day, while they made new, specifically holy oil for their lamps. And miraculously, it didn't go out. And so that's what Jews believe, and that's where Hanukkah comes from. And they also got their Jewish independence. So, we continue. Second temple is built. The Hasmoneans rule for a period of time. Jews had self-government for almost over 100 years, practically. But some infighting happened amongst their priest kings, and they asked Rome to intervene. Now, asking Rome to intervene and expect Rome not to want to rule is a little bit silly. And so on. What happened? The Romans, Pompey the Great, 63 BC, comes in, and they are now occupied by Rome. So what they wanted was someone to come help. What they ended up with was being conquered. So under Roman occupation, the Jewish religion is tolerated. The Romans tolerated all religions in their empire as long as you acknowledge their rule. So you can see their writings were appreciated. However, the Jewish people, because they believed in one God, monotheism, they, according to their beliefs, had been exiled because they had worshipped more than one God, and God exiled them so they would learn their lesson. It's according to what they believe. So when they were conquered by the Romans, they would not compromise that belief in one God. And the Romans were very tolerant. The Jews weren't tolerant because the Romans believed in many gods. They were polytheistic. And the Jews would not go along with that. They were very nationalistic, very proud of who they were, and that's the true definition of nationalism. You're proud of who you are. You see this in the world with the World Cup, where you have like Spain against Germany, against Italy, against Brazil, and so on. So the Jewish people were no different. What was the response from Rome? They crushed any revolt that occurred, and they set up their own client kings known as the Herods. You can see this really cool picture of the Roman legions with their armor. Rome is a very powerful force to reckon with. Here's a picture of the Second Temple. It's a miniature, of course, built by Herod the Great. Under Roman rule, the Jews were able to practice their faith and prosper. As long as the Jews are obedient, Rome is happy. And that's going to be the theme of the empire. Which brings us to, how did the Jews live under Rome? Well, most, 95%, were farmers, fishermen, merchants, tradesmen, struggling to make ends meet, just trying to live. They wanted to obey the major commandments of the Torah, first 5 books of the Jewish scriptures, make their appropriate pilgrimages and sacrifices their faith required. They wanted to be what they believed their God wanted them to be, even under Roman rule. They were waiting for their Messiah or anointed one to save them from the Romans, and this is very key. Okay? Very important. Which brings about the rise of Christianity. So, we learned about the Jews, now we're going to learn about Christianity in Roman times. So, here you have Judea in the time of Jesus Christ. You can see where things are. Okay? So, Romans allowed Jewish people to practice their worship to their one God. Okay? Many Jews reluctantly lived under Roman rule. However, some wanted a revolt against Rome and believed a Messiah would come to lead their people to freedom. Very important. A gentleman named Jesus claims to be the Messiah, but his mission is not what the people expected. Now, the Jews wanted their Messiah to come and overthrow the Romans, but Jesus comes along and talks about freeing them from their sin, not Roman rule. And this is going to be another key point. So who is Jesus? Did he even exist? Well, born September 30th, 4 BC in Bethlehem. And I know some of you are thinking, wait a minute, I thought Christmas was when people celebrate the birth of Jesus. Well, that's according to tradition. The actual birth date, according to historians, most of them believe it was September 30th, 4 BC. And I know you're thinking, BC? Before Christ? How could he be born before himself? That's just a date designation. Okay? Just like AD, Anno Domini, means the year of our Lord, represents after that time period. There are other designations like CE, Common Era, and BCE, before Common Era. But I usually use the traditional BC and AD because that's what most historic documents use. And it really doesn't relate to Jesus necessarily. It's before Christ, in the year of our Lord. It relates to dates at this time. Okay? Excuse me. So we continue. Always got to make sure this is working. So he worshiped God and followed the Jewish law. He was a Jewish man. And historically, there really was a Jesus. There's a lot of controversy regarding this, but there was. There are a few Roman historians who wrote about him. The obvious one is Tacitus, who wrote about Jesus specifically in regards to the religion and the person who founded it. So there was a historic Jesus. He was Jew from this land, and he followed the Jewish law. At 30, began preaching to villagers, used parables or short stories with simple moral lessons to communicate his ideas. He preached, he taught, and healed. Now, obviously, according to historic Christianity, he was a divine person as well as a human. He had the power to heal. So that's what Christians believe. Okay? He claimed to be the Son of God. There's another one. Now, the idea of being the Son of God often confuses people, but let me explain it this way. In our time, son of someone means they're the offspring. In the time of the Jewish people, and specifically the time of the early Christians, this phrase meant the same as. So, in Jewish tradition, if you're the son of Judah, okay, then you are the same in essence with that father. So when Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, he was claiming to be God himself in the flesh. And that's what the Jews believe, which is why they rejected Jesus, because they didn't believe he was the Son of God. And this is what Christians believe, because they believe he is the Son of God. So that's where the controversy comes from. He recruited 12 disciples to help him spread his ideas, called apostles, in Jerusalem. Some Jews in Jerusalem welcomed Jesus. Many of the priests felt he threatened their leadership. Again, they're waiting for their Messiah to come and rescue them from the Romans, and yet this gentleman comes along and tells them about their lives, how they need to change, and what the Jewish beliefs really were, and they didn't like that. Roman authorities felt Jesus would lead the Jews in a revolt against their rule. So you have all these things happening, and guess what happens? According to the Gospels, the first 4 books of the Christian Bible, which also includes the Jewish scriptures, that's where the Bible comes from, Jesus was betrayed by one of his disciples, arrested by the Jewish leaders, and killed by Roman crucifixion on a cross. You can see this picture. This is a more traditional rendering of what happened. But that's what happened in history. It talks about crucifixion of a Jew from Judea named Jesus. Okay? Rumors spread that after he died, he rose again from the death, commanded disciples to spread his teachings to the world. And this is how Christianity first begins, with, according to historic Christianity, the death and resurrection of Jesus. And then his teachings are spread throughout the world. After the disciples reported he ascended into heaven, he commands them to spread the message to everyone. Which leads us to this gentleman, who is probably the biggest proponent of Christianity at his time, but also a person who started out against Christianity. Okay? Followers are called Christians for the first time. Disciples preached the messages of Christianity throughout the Roman world. Many historians believe that Christianity would not have been able to spread the way it did had it not developed in the Roman world, because Rome had their system of roads. They can get from one part of the empire to the other in as little as 6 days, a good horse, usually about a week or two. But that was amazing in that time period that they could do that. So a Jew named Paul converts to Christianity, spreads the message to Roman Empire throughout the Mediterranean Sea. And Paul started out part of the Jewish leadership, and actually was against Christianity. But then he has a conversion experience and becomes its biggest proponent. His letters become the largest part of the New Testament in the Christian Bible. 14, in fact, books of the New Testament are, in fact, written by Paul, as he is called the Apostle. Okay, and there's a picture of him right there. Well, a rendering of him. We really don't know what he looked like, but most people consider this fairly accurate for our purposes. So the Christians are oppressed. Why? Why would Christians be oppressed by the Romans if the Jews were accepted? Well, Romans were not tolerant towards Christians because Christians refused to honor the emperor with sacrifices. Like the Jews, Christians believe in one God, and they are not going to sacrifice to anyone other than their God. And the Romans did not like that because you were supposed to offer sacrifices in the name of the emperor, to him in fact, because they believed he was their God amongst all their many. They refused to worship Roman gods to protect the state, so Romans also wanted their people to honor the various gods they worshipped to protect the empire. And this is going to lead to the idea that the Christians were the reasons the Roman Empire fell. We'll get to that next time. Christians were used as scapegoats, blamed for social and economic problems of the empire. And a scapegoat actually comes from the Jewish tradition of having a goat on the Day of Atonement. They had two of them actually. One of them was sacrificed. The other one was let go. And that represented their sins. As long as you could see the goat, the sins remained. But once it was gone, it escaped. It was a scapegoat. And now their sins were forgiven by their God. So that's what the Jews believed. And Christians were called scapegoats, blamed for the problems of the Roman Empire. They became martyrs, or people who suffer or die for their beliefs. In fact, there are many historic accounts of people who profess a faith in Christianity being killed simply for their beliefs. Millions, in fact. And that even at that time, the people who were killing them sometimes converted based on what they saw the Christians do, which was simply die for their faith. However, Christianity continued to spread due to the fact that all people were welcome, and this is key to Christianity in that it is a belief that welcomes everyone. In fact, one of the famous verses that Christians use is, for God so loved the world, he gave his only Son. Whoever believes in him would not perish but have everlasting life. And for Christians, that is their belief that anyone can come to God and accept forgiveness and be, quote, saved. Okay? So that's what Christians believe. The early Christian church was persecuted for many years until a Roman emperor named Constantine converted to Christianity. Yes, a Roman emperor converts to Christianity. And in AD 313, issues the Edict of Milan, which says that all citizens of Rome can worship however they want. And then by the end of that century, 400 AD, the Roman Emperor Theodosius makes Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. And what does that do? Well, if you are a Catholic, sometimes you're called a Roman Catholic, it's because of this event. The fact the official title of the Roman Church is called the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And that's because of Emperor Theodosius, who made Christianity the official religion of the empire. So you have, starts out with Judaism all the way to the official religion of the Roman Empire in Christianity. Truly amazing. So, conclusion. Belief in one God changes focus of Roman ideas about life, rule, and expansion. From Jews to Christians, Rome cannot continue to dominate and eventually adopts Christianity as its official religion of the empire. Eastern Empire outlasts Western until the rise of Islam, which we're going to learn about later on. And that's going to tie into everything we're going to learn the rest of the school year. But very important, Judaism, Christianity, large impact on the Roman Empire. Now, if you were in your groups, you would discuss any questions, thoughts, or comments or observations. Specifically, do you think religion played a role in the fall of Rome? Do you think it did? Do you think it didn't? That's what you would need to discuss and come up with an answer for. And with that, is there another reason that is more likely the cause? And we're going to learn about the 10 theories for the fall of Rome next after we tackle some other ideas. But this is going to be percolating in your mind. What was the reason? Was it this? Was it something else? With that, we conclude. I thank you for listening and taking notes on this lesson. Remember, you should have written down everything you saw. It's a general rule. Whatever things are put on the board, you write it down. And if you haven't, you can go back and do it now with the lesson. But thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good time and enjoyed learning about these great ideas and subjects in Roman history.